What is gone and will never be back. Slightly off topic, but I despise fish sandwiches not because of the taste, but because I had a coworker who said fish wiches, which is fine, but he said it with a lisp cranked up to 11, which made me dig my nails into my chair, like the opposite of ASMR. Stupid, I know. Going to the video store on a Friday night to rent the latest new release on VHS or DVD. My kids will never understand the excitement that was Blockbuster, or the frustration of the movie you want being out of stock. I know Redbox exists, but it is not the same. We never use Redbox and just stream at home. Back in the day there was not any other alternative option. If the local video store did not have it, you didn't watch it. I recall being in a McDonald's in North Carolina about 15 years ago, being from further north on the East Coast where smoking indoors had been banned since the 90s. It felt extremely weird and foreign to me sitting there eating my QPC in a cloud of smoke. There was a sleeve of aluminum ashtrays on top of the garbage can when I was leaving, and I remember thinking to myself that I should take them because they would be a relic and collector's item someday. Sadly, I did not. I don't think the fast food giants will take that sort of perceived hit to their profits. Just because plant-based meat becomes cheaper doesn't make meat a luxury item. The farms will still be pumping out meat until demand dies down. Seeing as most people prefer real meat, I can't see that happening. The price of meat won't go up until people stop buying as much of it, and people will keep buying it while it's affordable. The video company bumper, especially the chromey, lasery ones that the 80s had, like Vestron, then fade into a cold open or title sequence in that glowy orange they used, with the obvious film stock, and the whirring of the video head, the clamshell of Disney tapes. Even DVD rental is not the same as the golden age of home video rental in the 1980s. I miss going, even during the beginnings of streaming services, to get the 5 movies for $5 for 5 days. It's not something we did all the time, but it was an activity that people could do together, and after spending that time agreeing on movies, of course most of the time you'll watch them together. There's something ceremonious about that to me, along with picking out some candy at checkout. Our movie store dude had this smooth, robust voice that you'd usually hear in cheesy radio ads or made-for-TV commercials, and he was a cinephile to the max. I remember always being struck by how long he'd worked there and how much he knew. Movies seemed to be his life. It was like he was a movie character himself most of the time. Good memories. I vividly remember getting the coupon for the personal pan pizza for reading however many books in a month, and my father taking me and a few friends to Pizza Hut to use them. We thought the chocolate pudding in the salad bar was the best thing ever, and yes, we always made sure to bring quarters for the arcade games once we were done. Not to worry, these large corporations are scum. If they perceive that they can make enough money out of this business model again, they will certainly bring it back. Problem is that people like the idea and nostalgia around it, but will only bother to actually engage with it occasionally if at all. Even though these companies are already billion-dollar companies, they are not content to merely make a profit using every shifty trick in the book for profit maximization. They must make massive profits, or they are not interested. That being said, there's still some old-school Pizza Hut dine-in restaurants scattered around here and they're left in the world. You can probably find them on Wiki or Google. The one in my small town is still like that. Couple arcade games and a salad bar, at least in early 2020 anyways. The bowling alley had better arcade games and better pizza though. They even had a pool table. The bowling alley is dope. Pizza Hut not so much. Sadly, they closed not long before the pandemic. Somebody bought them out, closed it, opened it as a hair salon, and sold it again. Now it's a Dollar General. Oh yes, I'm taller than my mom was. I remember a few months before she died, she was standing on a bottom step, so she was a little taller than I was. So, as a woman in my early 40s, I walked up to mommy and laid my head on her chest and wrapped my arms around her waist. She wrapped an arm around my shoulders and kissed my forehead. She got sick and died a few months later. That hug is one of my most precious memories. I'm taller than my 2 teenage daughters, and I hold them like that all the time now. This got me hard. I had a very similar experience about the months before my mom passed from cancer. All the weight of the reality of things was looming, and my floodgate of tears came forth. She immediately called me to lie next to her, and she just held me in her arms as I sobbed. It was one of the things I never knew I needed most before she went. I was 38 years old, and I still needed my mama one last time. I miss her dearly. One of the last things my mom ever did to me, physically, was give me a big hug for no special reason after her coworker brought her home because she fell asleep at work. It was a symptom of a massive infection that would start wreaking havoc on her body only a few hours later, and which would kill her in a couple days. One could say it was premonition on her part, but we honestly had no idea what was wrong with her until the next day. My last words to her, to which she could only nod, were, "I'm gonna go home now, from the hospital, to sleep, but I'll be back tomorrow." The chances I chose to prioritize work over family, missed so many opportunities to spend more time with my kids, trying to take advantage of it more now. I tell my younger friends and coworkers who are just now having kids that I don't miss not being at a meeting on a weekend, but I sure as hell miss holding my sons, playing in the sandbox with them, etc. This one is huge. I've never prioritized work over my daughter. Her mother leaving me has made it a struggle with my job. I've worked as a railroad engineer her entire life. I spend every day off I have with her. But she's growing up and I'm still missing too much. Had I realized all this sooner, I'd have saved more money and quit by now. If I can make it happen, I'm planning on quitting in 3 years to pursue something that I can be home every day and keep more normal hours. Even if it means I won't have a whole lot of money. Getting to be there for everything for my daughter is my only priority. I've missed way too much of her life. A few too many Christmas but never any birthdays. I've remained single nearly her entire life besides the 18-24 months her mother and I were together. Interesting. I am the opposite of both of you. I used to work a ton of it until they stopped allowing it while my daughter was still young. I quickly learned that 2.5-day weekends were an absolute joy and did not miss the extra money at all. I remember the belt tightening and the bologna and ramen, but it was well worth it for the time spent and the rock-solid relationship we had and have. If I could do it over again just the same, I would in a minute. Around me they build a new mall every 15-20 years. And then the old mall is all small local businesses owned by minorities selling clothes, jewelry, and beauty supplies. After 5 or so years of that, the old mall is closed permanently after losing money for so long. Then the cycle repeats. A new mall is opened and all the big-name retailers move there and the hermit crab mall cycle keeps on going. I've never been able to understand why the arcade didn't flourish with the advent of home computers. Like, hear me out. The whole point of the arcade is that you could get access to games that wouldn't be viable for you to have at home. Due to cost and size, that market theoretically still exists. Where are my Cast 8K, 240 FPS VR games with Dolby surround sound and a thick subwoofer behind my back? Where are my online, syncing up to other arcades around the country, laser tag flight simulators? Where are my local fighting game or classic arcade tournaments where I can get my ass beat by a soccer mom? The opportunity is there, And I am certainly not the first person to think of it. A $20,000 gaming rig is impossible for most people, but a $20,000 gaming rig that makes $5,000 in returns every year is a damn good investment for a business. I agree. I remember hanging out at the mall with my friends and meeting boys there every single weekend. Most times we only had bus money to get there and back and some to spare to grab a drink to split between all of us lol. My teenage son has never even gone to the mall with his friends, and when I ask why they don't hang at the mall he looks at me like it's not a thing and I'm crazy lol. True, I was a teen in the mid-late 80s and used to hang out at the mall all the time, even weekdays after high school, take the bus to get there, go to the bookstore, the record store, head shop, etc. Even used to try to pick up girls at the mall. Had a couple of brief teenage girlfriends as a result. Good times. Growing up with spiteful Asian parents that didn't want me having fun, I got robbed of my childhood lol. I never understood the idea of being grounded when I was a kid. I'd watch TV and the mom is like, you're grounded, no going out this weekend, and my sheltered ass was like, so they're going to be good kids and instead of going to the mall and being bad kids, they're going to stay home? Don't you have to beat them as punishment instead of just enforcing already existing rules? This may have accelerated the trend, but it isn't even a significant portion of why. The real death of malls is in the anchor stores and all that business and foot traffic going online. Montgomery Ward's was the first to fall in 2001, way too soon for any chasing the kids off in the 90s to have any real effect yet. Plus I question whether there was any real widespread trend of chasing the kids off anyway. Certainly didn't see that at the mall I worked at in college at that time. My local mall legit removed all their benches because it encouraged teenagers to sit on the benches. This had the dual effect of pissing off old people, who also enjoyed sitting on benches. The mall now literally has like 80 stores at least, and not a single place to sit except the food court. So now they have people who buy food and have nowhere to sit because a bunch of non-eating people are using the only seating options available in the entire mall. Guards now have a job of walking around and shooing non-eating people away from the food court tables so that actual paying customers can find somewhere to sit. Dumbest shit ever. Nobody hangs out there anymore because you can't sit down anywhere without paying money. Our movie theater is connected to the mall. Every once in a while when I need something, gift, movie I want, etc., I'll stroll through. There's never anything worth buying or that I want. A lot of stores closed and the storefront is just turned into a display case. Apparently the owner is not renewing leases so he can just sell when it's all done with. I just saw a YouTube documentary about this a couple days ago. Fun fact. Anti-loitering laws actually started to prevent the gathering of black people and other ethnic minorities in public. These old laws saw a resurgence of use in the 80s to discourage teenagers from gathering at malls. While online shopping takes much of the blame for the death of the North American mall, these dumb anti-loitering laws are definitely a contributing factor. Sort of same thing happened to ours. It was thriving. I was in my early 20s, went at least once a week for lunch, or just to walk around and shop with friends. It was sold to new owners, who decided to run off teenagers, raise rents, and ban any store that wasn't a franchise, or part of a chain. All of our favorite stores, gone. No more crystal/incense/ceramic dragon lady, no more collector's shop. No more funny Korean guy selling Japanese swords. All of the small business owners that had the coolest stuff, gone. Now we only go to the mall for very specific things, and rarely. It's like a beautifully renovated ghost town. That mall used to be awesome, but now it just feels sad. Never really hung out at the mall on weekends, but it was the place to be on Friday afternoons and evenings. School would get out around 1400 hours on Fridays, together with a couple friends, We would hop on the bus and head to the nearest mall. The mall had everything you needed to kill time well into the evening. There was the arcade, the food court, the theater, the bowling alley, and of course the stores. Even if you'd seen most of the stores a dozen times before, the music stores would always have new albums each week in the demo systems. It was great, but over time there was a distinct impression that we weren't welcome there anymore. They closed the arcade, put up signage saying we couldn't use the coin lockers anymore unless we were currently bowling, and shopkeepers weren't keen on us bringing our bags into their stores. Many of the benches throughout the mall were also removed as people were loitering around them. High schoolers hanging out chatting. Security would chase us out of the food court if we were sitting for too long, and the music stores removed the demo systems that would let you listen to new albums. It's fair to say now that while I have fond memories of time spent at the mall, I no longer feel any attachment or real desire to visit them. The mall near me has a food court and little else. It is a boring place in my opinion. When I was young they made me feel unwelcome, and now I don't feel any want to even visit the mall. I live near a mall that's still popular. The weirdest shops are popping up in it now. Selfie stores where you can pay to take selfies in front of various decorations, an airsoft shooting range, and several escape rooms owned by different companies. Many of the good stores are gone now, and I'm afraid it won't be long until the place sees its last visitors. The crazy thing is it's only been open for 20 years. I live in a small US city, if you want to call it that. 3 million. We have a very healthy mall, and another that is almost gone. But the owners instituted Youth Enforcement Policy, YEP, about 10 years ago, stating that no one under 18 was permitted in the mall unaccompanied. Unfortunately, that means no kids going to movies, hanging out, strolling the mall. Now there is a generation of people who have no warm feelings about being in the mall. Online definitely plays a part, but no one even likes the mall anymore, just different times. One of my co-workers was telling us today his 19-year-old son rocks an achy breaky heart mullet. Even perms the backhand. My co-workers reports that his son declares that the ladies love it. He's a hockey player too though, and I think it never really went out of style for hockey players, so this might be more of a fluke than a youth trend. But stranger things might have reignited a mainstream spark as well. I'm unsure of where the truth lies with teenagers and mullets these days. From a 17-year-old girl, mullets are popular now for boys who play lacrosse or hockey. BC it comes out of the helmet at the bottom and they call it a flow or lettuce, and some people like it but others don't. For me it depends on how well it's cut. There's also a cowboy type of mullet which I don't like, but I have friends from the south who do, so it could also be regional. I've seen some PPL who have them who don't play these sports or are from the south, but they do it for fun and for styling. Definitely back more than before, but it's not a universal thing again. One of my co-workers has a full-grown mullet right now. He got a written warning last year for coming into work in regular street clothes. It was bullshit because he came in to deal with a massive emergency when he had been taking time off and shouldn't have even been called. He literally drove 3 hours from his parents' cabin to save the day, and he got written up. Anyway, it really pissed him off, so he went over our corporate dress code policy and decided that he'd grow a mullet as it technically complied with the company dress code. We only started migrating back to the office in the last few weeks. He got a written warning on his second day, which he immediately conference called HR to get it rescinded, which he did. The only fail was he still doesn't know who filed the complaints in the first place, just that it was the same person. The current recipe costs 12 cents per candy bar to make. Since we sell it wholesale for 50 cents per candy bar, we only make 38 cents profit per candy bar. Now if we just substituted 50% of the ingredients for sawdust, the candy bar will be the same size, but now only cost 4 cents to produce. We got a great deal with the furniture company who will actually pay us to take the sawdust away. That means we now have a profit of 46 cents per candy bar, massive increase in profit. What, when? I haven't gone for one of the bars since the 90s, but I enjoy the occasional Dairy Queen Butterfinger Blizzard. Will I be disappointed? It's a texture and flavor experience. Even some bars from the 90s seem to be missing the texture element, like maybe they got too warm and melted together. Maybe I'll just accept that I'm an old person now and have almonds for dessert.